live in hard-hit Keaton Beach, which is west of Gainesville. That's where the storm made landfall. Grady, good morning.
Good morning, Rachel. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, as well as the administrator of FEMA, will tour the damage today. And when they do, they will see scenes like this all over the Big Bend region of Florida. This area, Keaton Beach, where the storm made landfall, was really concerned about storm surge yesterday, but when the storm actually moved through about 24 hours ago, the biggest issue in this neighborhood was wind damage. You can see this roof came off of this house and fell into what looks like the neighbor's pool. There are other houses that have similar damage in the area as well. Where flooding was a problem was in Steinhatchee, Florida. I want to show you that video where we saw high water vehicles from the Taylor County Sheriff's Office driving around. We also saw Florida Fish and Wildlife, state law enforcement officials, and Coast Guard officials making their rounds throughout the neighborhood by land, by boat, and in the air, looking for anyone who might need to be rescued. Fortunately, they did not find anyone that we're aware of who was in need of help. As of right now, Taylor County, where we are, 99% of people here do not have power. So as they begin to recover, they are not going to have air conditioning to do that. Also want to get to this tweet from Casey DeSantis, Governor DeSantis' wife. She said a 100-year-old oak tree fell on the governor's mansion there while she and the 3 kids were home. Fortunately, everyone was okay. And finally, the big concern now is possible looting. Governor DeSantis has this warning for anybody thinking about it.
I'd also just remind potential looters that you never know what you're walking into. I've seen signs in different people's yards in the past after these disasters, and I would say it's probably here. You loot, we shoot. You never know what's behind that door if you go break into somebody's house.
And Rachel, we have not seen looters ourselves in this neighborhood, but when we first got here yesterday afternoon, a sheriff's deputy actually stopped us and asked us to see our IDs to let us into the neighborhood. People coming in here have to prove that they live here in order to pass because they say looting has become a problem already. Rachel?
Wow. Grady, thank you so much. Great report. All right, well, let's check in now with our senior meteorologist, Janice Dean, for our Fox weather forecast. Janice.
Yeah, almost done with the storm system, but we definitely got heavy rainfall, some cases close to 10 inches. This is Florida's rainfall totals, but not only that, but into Georgia and South Carolina yesterday, close to 10 inches in Statesboro, Georgia. We had some flash flood emergencies yesterday. Just want to show you rapid intensification before U.S. landfall in terms of record keeping since 1950. Idalia is top 4 because we went from a Cat 1 to a Category 4 in just a matter of hours. Also want to point out by letter retired tropical names, the I name storms, and this one will probably be retired as well. They usually do that because of the death toll or from extreme damage, so we'll probably see Idalia retired. Tropical storm Idalia now the area of low pressure just off the coast of the Carolinas here. We have tropical storm warnings in effect. The storm will be exiting offshore in the next few hours, and Bermuda could see the remnants, but it will be a weakening system and it's not going to curve back, which is great news. We are also watching the Atlantic. It is peak season right now. This is what we're dealing with as we go into August and September, so we still have a ways to go, especially into the weeks of September, so we'll continue to keep you up to date. Otherwise, fairly quiet as we go into the long weekend. Over to you.
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Meanwhile, Janice, I look forward to talking to you in the green room. The strongest hurricane in more than a century hit Florida's Big Bend yesterday. Now locals are now looking back at a long recovery in some cases. Our next guest watched his bar flood on live stream as the nearly 7-foot storm surge hit Cedar Key. Owner of Low Key Hideaway and Tiki Bar, Scott Larson, joins us now. Scott, when did you set up that camera and you realized you wanted to get a vision of what was or wasn't going to happen to your bar?
Say it again?
What made you set up the camera?
Well, before a hurricane, you own a bar, what do? I guess you start having some drinks with your employees, and we walked down and ran into one of your guys setting up the cameras and, having little conversations. And I got a good idea. put one of those in a tiki bar, and so that's what happened. And I'm glad we did. It was really hard to watch, but you know, it was nice to be able to sit there and watch it all unfold. It is a disaster here.
You just rebuilt it and you refurbished it after you took it over. What are your thoughts now that you see the water damage?
Yeah, we spent the last year and a half remodeling, making it beautiful again. I think God likes to watch me work. But
it'll come back. He's just moving it around.
The footage that you guys have. Yeah, it's just a disaster here.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, you might not want to move the camera because I think we're losing your audio a little bit. So you believe you're going to get this thing opened in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. 2 weeks or sooner. Well, it's not going to look the same, but the drinks will still be good.
How about your insurance? Do you have them? Do you have it?
Yeah.
You don't have insurance?
No, we have insurance. It doesn't cover the bar, unfortunately, and anything outside. You know, insurance is always clauses. But, you know, the worst part is that the motel we have here in my house, 4 feet underwater. So you go inside my house and it looks like, you know, the couch is where the refrigerator was and the refrigerator is where the couch was. So that's probably the worst of it. The bar will clean up. It's a tiki bar. It's supposed to be, you know, fun and look almost like it does, but not quite. So, but we'll get it up and going. But I'm homeless for a while, but we'll get through it.
Wow, you have a great attitude. Scott Larson, the low-key hideaway and tiki bar will be open in a couple of weeks. Help him out, show up, and get drunk. Good job, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, a retired Navy officer gets over 100 stitches after being brutally mugged while walking his dog in Philadelphia. Do you believe this? The latest on the search for his attacker. But first, Biden mad over being treated like a toddler by his staffers. That's what a new book claims. And the line of high-profile Democrats hoping to succeed the president. And no, they don't want Kamala.
An upcoming book reveals that our 80-year-old commander-in-chief has told his staff the job is wearing him down. Author Franklin Foer writes in his new book, The Last Politician, quote, Biden's advanced years were a hindrance, depriving him of the energy to cast a robust public presence or the ability to easily conjure a name. In private, he would occasionally admit that he felt tired. He also felt, apparently, that the staff was treating him like a toddler. Former Clinton advisor and Harris Poll chairman Mark Penn joins us right now. Mark, good morning to you.
Morning.
Well, you know, the I'm tired business kind of fits in with these national opinion polls that show a gigantic majority of Americans feel like he's just too old for the job.
Well, that is what a lot of polls are showing, and I think it's going to be incumbent on Biden in this campaign to shake that off. Look, being tired, President Clinton barely slept. He was tired most of the time, particularly during impeachment. So I didn't know that was much of a shocking revelation to me.
Yeah. Plus, we know that he is stage managed. You know, we constantly hear him say, you know, as he wanders over to reporters, he goes, they don't want me to talk to you guys, so I got to go get on the chopper and stuff like that. Meanwhile, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, you know, look, I thought he was right to be ticked off. You know, President Clinton would make mistakes, and we'd go to President Clinton and we'd say, you know, we think maybe we should correct this. We'd never just do it without consulting the president. So if I was with him on that one, he was right to be ticked off. And that's stepping over the line when it comes to staff.
Yeah. There's an interesting Wall Street Journal article that came out in the last week or so that said that the race for 2028 is already heating up, and there are a bunch of Democratic governors who are kind of queuing up behind Kamala Harris because obviously they don't want to cede the stage to her. If Joe Biden makes it another 4 years, she would be the presumptive nominee, but, you know, a whole bunch of people like Gavin Newsom, governor of Maryland, the governor of Pennsylvania, the governor of Michigan are all waiting in the wings.
Well, I think they definitely are. Look, they're waiting in the wings now. Look, 6 months ago, I didn't think the Democrats would consolidate around Biden, but they did. I mean, he is scoring much higher points in the Democratic primary than Trump is in the Republican primary. And I think there are a lot of potential new candidates that, if things go as the Democrats would like, Biden re-election, yeah, there'll be an open primary. But remember, in the end, the vice presidents have almost always gotten the nomination from Mondale on in the Democratic side because you've got all the institutional advantages. But you're right. I think there'll be a big primary in 2028, just the way it is.
Yesterday, the President of the United States was talking about a governor, but the governor was a Republican, and the governor was Ron DeSantis, and said he's doing a good job down there, and he trusts him. Watch this, Mark.
I know that sounds strange, especially how the nature of politics today. But, you know, I was down there when the last major storm. I spent a lot of time with him, walking from village to from community to community, making sure he had what he needed to get it done. I think he trusts my judgment and my desire to help, and I trust him to be able to suggest that this is not about politics, it's about taking care of the people of the state.
That's something we don't hear very often anymore. You know, there's a possibility it could be Ron DeSantis versus Joe Biden in 2024. And here's Joe Biden saying, yeah, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I trust him.
Well, look, I'm glad to see an ounce of bipartisanship and reaching over. I thought during the pandemic, I would have liked to have seen more Republicans and Democrats praising each other, because that's the way Americans should be during a crisis like this. And I think DeSantis has done a good job. He's been very strictly apolitical in what he's been doing. I think he showed kind of why he gets reelected in Florida by the way he handled the hurricane so far. I think this is going to help him a lot in this presidential primary, because he's showing his stuff.
There you go. All right. Mark Penn. Sir, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you.
All right. 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Coming up, power to the parents. The landmark victory for a California mother who argued her daughter changed genders at school without her consent. She's going to join us next with a Fox and Friends exclusive.
A landmark victory for parental rights has just been settled, and it's coming out of California, Spreckle, California. In 2021, Jessica Conan, a California mom, sued the Spreckle School District when she learned that her daughter was being socially transitioned at school. She alleged that they questioned her daughter's sexuality and allowed her to use male pronouns and bathrooms. With the backing of the Center for American Liberty, Conan is receiving $100,000 from her settlement with the district. Joining us now is Jessica, her daughter Alicia, and Mark Trammell. He's the executive director of the Center for American Liberty, and a Fox and Friends exclusive. So I'm going to start with you, Jessica. First of all, so much courage. I think you're a hero. I know it's not easy to go public. Why did you decide to go public with this story?
I decided to actually go public with the story because I knew that I needed to fight for her. I needed to be able to provide that parental, that parental guidance that she needed. I decided to go forward with the story because I wanted to protect her and I wanted to be there for her.
Yeah.
So, and also thank you for having us.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, you are protecting other children by coming public. It's really remarkable. Alicia, I'm just so curious. Who did you were upset at school and you told somebody I'm upset, and then they said, well, you might not be, who you truly are inside. There's somebody else you could be. They sort of started to question your sexuality. Did you go to a teacher or a counselor?
It was a counselor that I went to.
Yeah.
And that counselor ended up working with the school as well to socially transition me.
I want to get to the lawyer, but before I want to go back to you, Jessica, to Mom. I know you've learned so much through this experience. I'm sure it's been traumatic, and I want to ask you a little bit about, the emotional toll it's taken. But in addition to that, could you talk to us about your best advice? Because I think I look at these guidance counselors' offices, and I think that they're kind of treacherous, right? Is there, if you could go back in time, would you have a note saying you can't talk to my child without talking to me first, with anything at the counselor's office?
Actually, yes, I would. I feel that parents should be involved throughout their complete children, their elementary, their middle school, whatever, anything that the child goes through. I think a parent should be involved. I absolutely would have put a note because it's up to me, to be able to guide her in that direction. That's what my parental right is. I would, suggest as my advice to stop doing this. Stop putting secrecy into parents in general. It creates division within families. It helps. It kind of stops the bond that you make with your children. And so absolutely I would send a note. I would not like them to partake in that, because if anything, they can notify me so we can all work together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mark, this case is, it's landmark. We've said that in the intro. I believe it is. What do you think are the repercussions now? I mean, by the way, I don't think $100,000 is enough for the trauma that this family has gone through, frankly. But what do you think this amount of money is going to do in terms of the trajectory of how this is handled in other schools?
Absolutely. This type of incident, these are happening in schools across the country. And I think schools are going to wake up when they realize that there's a financial liability at stake here, right? Parental secrecy policies, you might expect in a place like California, but you don't expect it in middle America. But I can tell you, our offices have had calls from, I think, probably almost all 50 states. Very similar stories as Jessica's and Alicia's. And I think I'm really excited that this outcome, not only, I'm excited for this outcome, not just for my clients, but for what it's going to do nationwide. I think it's going to have a deterring effect. I think that schools that are doing this behind parents' backs are going to think twice, because the financial liability is so great.
Yeah, money talks. Sadly, that's what it took. Alicia, you were told you were a boy or might be a boy. They socially transitioned you, and then with time, you eventually said, no, this is who I am. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? I'm a woman. I'm a girl.
Well, after COVID hit, I ended up being out of the control of the school, and I really figured out that who the school said I was not, and that I was a girl and I was Alicia. And it was eye-opening to me, because I had an identity for so long that was false. So it really took me a while to figure out that I was Alicia, but after I figured it out, things only went up.
Yeah, you're beautiful, Alicia. Thank you. I'm going to end with you, Jessica. So Alicia, I think it's important to note, was only 11 years old when this happened. She was so impressionable, and it was, as she said, until she left, the grasp of the school during COVID and was home under your protection that she kind of came to herself. I'd like to get just a little idea of what parents can do if they find themselves in this situation, what your advice to them are. They may not know it's happening. By the way, Jessica, they may not know it's happening. What are the signs?
Okay. So one is to be vigilant inside the classrooms. Pay attention to their behavior when they come home. Are they acting different? Be involved. Set yourself inside the classrooms. Ask the questions that are uncomfortable. I know it's kind of, hard to bring the subject up, but if you make your thoughts and your opinions and everything, you put them up front for people to hear and understand, do your research on the schools, on the teachers, on the school boards. I think that parents, no matter what, should go with their gut feelings. They know their intuition. They would know if something's wrong with their children. If you see a rapid change within your child, try to build a relationship on talking with them, asking them what's going on. I definitely think that involvement is the best that I could suggest. And just, you guys have the right to do it. You parents have the right to raise your own kids.
Yeah, they're your kids, not the government, not the schools.
That's right.
You're a mama bear. We love it. Thanks for what you're doing for the country. Alicia?
Absolutely.
Alicia, Jessica, Mark, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
You got it. God bless. The second hour of Fox and Friends starts right now.
Good morning, everybody. It's 7:02 on the East Coast on this August 31st, 2023, the last day of August. And we have a Fox weather alert. Look at this drone shot right here. At least 3 deaths are being linked to Hurricane Idalia. Florida Highway Patrol says there were 2 deadly crashes before the hurricane made landfall yesterday. And a man in Georgia was apparently killed by a fallen tree while trying to clear a blocked road. Right now, the still powerful storm is slamming the Carolinas as a tropical storm, but it hit Florida's Big Bend as a Cat 3 hurricane, bringing life-threatening storm surge, flash flooding, dangerous winds, and a lot of destruction. At this hour, over 310,000 people are without power across, as you can see, the affected areas of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas on this Thursday.
All right, here we go. A brief tornado from Idalia, flipping a car off the ground in South Carolina. We had to keep the sound down, some expletives, you can imagine. Meanwhile, before and after satellite images show the extent of the flooding in Florida.
Grady Trimble with Fox Business is live in hard-hit Keaton Beach, which is west of Gainesville. That's where the storm made landfall. Grady, good morning.
Good morning, Steve, Rachel, and Brian. The good news in this neighborhood is that everyone we've talked to here said they heeded the warnings and got out. But the damage to their homes is immense. You can see that the winds were so powerful here. The storm ripped off roofs. It carried this couch into somebody else's front yard, into their driveway. And then if we look around here, this is the worst damage we've seen in this neighborhood from the wind. It absolutely demolished this home, just a mess. That's a bedroom on the second floor, if you can see that. There's a mattress against what was one of the bedroom walls and a TV still hanging on that wall that was knocked down. I want to show you some videos that we have of flooding in other parts of the state because that was a big problem as well. Listen to this tiki bar owner who described coming back to the bar and seeing the floodwaters several feet high.
Motel we have here in my house, 4 feet underwater. So you go inside my house and it looks like, the couch is where the refrigerator was and the refrigerator is where the couch was. I'm homeless for a while, but we'll get through it.
And the First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis, tweeted a photo of a 100-year-old oak tree that fell on the governor's mansion while she and the 3 kids were home. Fortunately, everyone was safe. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was not home at the time, probably because he was out telling people if they're planning to loot these homes that have been broken into, that is not a good idea. Listen.
I'd also just remind potential looters that you never know what you're walking into. I've seen signs in different people's yards in the past after these disasters, and I would say it's probably here. You loot, we shoot. You never know what's behind that door if you go break into somebody's house.
And today, Governor DeSantis, as well as the FEMA administrator, will tour the damage here. They say some of the homes and businesses here will not be able to be used for weeks, if not months. As of right now, here in Taylor County, 99% of the people here are without power, so it is going to be quite an effort to rebuild in this part of the state. Guys, back to you.
And Grady, yesterday there were hundreds of acres of coastland underwater, and the house behind you obviously destroyed by the wind. Where are those people going to go?
We know that hundreds of FEMA employees are going to be on the ground today helping out. We know that even churches have opened up their doors to try to help people if they don't have a home. But you're right, there's a big problem when you have floodwaters that move into a home, because even though it recedes pretty quickly, and that's what we saw in Steinhatchee by the afternoon yesterday, most of the floodwater had subsided from the homes, but then you have to worry about the stench. There's mud in all of these homes. And there could be mold in some of them once they dry out. So it's going to be a statewide and really a nationwide effort to help these people who have been displaced by this storm.
All right, Grady, thank you. Meanwhile, let's download the app. If you haven't yet, Fox Weather app, continuing coverage, then you won't need us as much as you do.
You know what? And one other thing regarding Fox Weather, if you have the Roku channel, go to Roku, and Fox Weather is there absolutely free. So check it out.
That's true. All right, well, lawyers for IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley say that the Justice Department officials meddled with the Hunter Biden investigation.
And more email revealing the first son's relationship with officials from former President Obama's State Department did exist. Mark Meredith is live at the White House with more about email and more about Hunter.
Steve, Brian, and Rachel, good morning to all three of you. This morning, we are learning some new details about what was going on behind the scenes at the Department of Justice after an IRS whistleblower came forward alleging federal prosecutors were giving first son Hunter Biden some special treatment. An attorney representing Gary Shapley, who you may remember testified before Congress earlier this summer, says after his client raised concerns, the Justice Department reached out not only to them, but also to lawyers for Hunter Biden. Attorney Mark Little telling the New York Post, quote, "After our client offered whistleblower testimony to Congress, Lisa Monaco's right-hand man, Bradley Weisenheimer, scheduled a meeting with Mr. Biden's defense counsel to appeal over the head of Mr. Weiss in a way that was totally at odds with the narrative that David Weiss was acting independently." Now, Weiss, who is the U.S. attorney out in Delaware, appointed by former President Trump to oversee the Hunter case, has denied any wrongdoing, and he's now acting as special counsel in this investigation. Meantime, America First Legal, which is an activist group founded by former Trump aide Stephen Miller, says through Freedom of Information Act requests, it's discovered how often Hunter Biden would interact with then Vice President Biden's office. They tallied it up. The group says records show during the Obama-Biden years, at least 800 White House emails reference an investment firm that Hunter co-founded. And you can see also emails released by the White House totaling some 200. Some emails even to show how close the relationship Hunter Biden had with then Secretary of State John Kerry. There's an email which shows that Secretary Kerry was working to make himself available to a class at Georgetown that Hunter Biden was teaching. Now, the emails America First obtained basically show a lot of scheduling requests, asking for tours to like the White House Christmas party, stuff to that effect. But for lawmakers, this may raise fresh questions about what was happening behind the scenes and whether or not first son Hunter Biden and then Vice President son Hunter Biden was using his dad's connections too far.
Mark, as you know, John Kerry's son was a partner, and for some reason he decided, I don't want to be with that company anymore. I'm wondering if there's a story there.
Well, Secretary Kerry, of course, is still very much in the orbit here of the Biden administration, even though he's no longer Secretary of State. Whether or not, though, that these emails will shine necessarily any major repercussions out of Congress is yet to be seen. But they've still been trying to say, we want to hear more from what Gary Shapley had to say behind the scenes. But the other X factor in all this, now with the special counsel, it's hard to imagine we're going to get answers really anytime soon. Instead, it feels like this is going to dredge on for quite a bit longer. Yeah,
and you know, Mark, it looks like, and you read this story, Daily Mail's got it right now. They've got some exclusive details. It looks like, and Politico got an email that they got Shapley's attorneys to respond to. It looks like Hunter Biden had the sweetheart deal. It was going to happen until these whistleblowers showed up and spilled the beans on television. Next thing you know, the DOJ is doing a 180, and then the special counsel comes in. And now, you know, all bets are off, and it looks like even though David Weiss said, the U.S. attorney, now the special counsel guy, even though he said, you know, I'm not the decider, okay, I am the decider, he's the guy who's supposed to decide whether or not to do something big against this first son.
Well, and Steve, as you know, David Weiss now says that they are going to go to trial at this point, but it's also possible a deal still could be reached. Just because they're going to trial now doesn't mean something couldn't change in the future. But for the first son, you have to imagine, though, how long this legal process is going to be drawn out for, and is it possible that if the longer it goes on, maybe it would be beneficial to him? We just simply don't know at this point. But again, I think, Rachel, the question that so many of these lawmakers are going to be asking is they want to hear from Weiss directly, and we still don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon.
Or Eric Sherwin, too. Also, Tony Bobulinski's getting queued up.
And Lisa Monaco.
And Brian, there's still talk up on the Hill that they're going to subpoena members of the Biden family. We haven't seen a list of who that would be yet, but you'd have to imagine it would be a pretty long list.
I did not know it was Professor Hunter. I read George.
Maybe starting with Jill and Joe, because they had keys to the Rosemont Seneca office that was shared by a Chinese energy executive with ties to the Chinese government.
You know,
wow.
I think Peter Doocy actually asked about that question, and they said they never went to the office.
We're going to continue this conversation on the Mark
he also said he never had any business with Hunter Biden, but there's 800 emails now between Rosemont Seneca.
Just a second. Mark,
and a lot of those emails have to do with, from what they say, from the records they've obtained regarding, scheduling. Can we get this? Can can we get that? But it does raise those questions about what was happening behind the scenes.
Does.
All right, if you want to go get brunch, Mark, you can. We wore you out.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's great.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
So I just can't wait to see Tony Bobulinski in front and center soon.
Yeah.
Here's the
A
cover.
little late, right? Like 2.5 years later.
We've heard from him, so it'll be interesting to see what he's got to say. Meanwhile, this is what the people of Staten Island have to say. NYC ya. Because, as we've been telling you over the last week or two, Mayor Adams' brilliant decision to do something with the thousands of migrants. They've shipped them over to a former Catholic school in Staten Island. And a lot of the people in Staten Island are very upset because it's the middle of a neighborhood, and they don't like the fact that there are these unvetted migrants of various ages in a neighborhood. And so, you know, over the last couple of weeks or so, there have been some protests and things like that. And now a member of Congress from Staten Island, which is predominantly Republican, is saying, you know what, maybe it's time to see you later, New York City.
Right, secede. She's calling for the secession. She says the reality is the city council and the state legislature would need to let Staten Island go. I hope they do reconsider this. I mean, I hear all the jokes all the time that they would love to get rid of Staten Island. Well, this is your opportunity. I think Staten Island would like to have an opportunity to self-govern. So, Brian, you said bring in Long Island.
Yes, I would like to go to. Do not leave us behind, please. That's all we ask.
From the state, you're saying secede from the
leave
state.
no island behind.
Yeah, I want to stay in the country. I would just like to be on my own, please.
Your own
let
state.
Let New York make their own decisions because they're all terrible. And we pay taxes here. We pay city tax, but we have no vote. But Nassau County, Suffolk, people around the country know it as the Hamptons. There's also a very diverse community there. Staten Island, very prideful, very patriotic people. I'd love to leave because guess who's here? 60,000 illegal immigrants, 100,000 have passed through. It cost us $12 billion because New York City wants to be a right-to-shelter city and it wants to be a sanctuary city, which means we can't kick them out. So our governor, the Democrat, a mayor, the Democrat, are fighting with each other, and now the Democratic governor went to see the Democratic president at the White House yesterday, and his 15-minute press conference must have just tuckered him out because he gave no time to the governor. She had to meet with Jeff Zients, the chief of staff. So you're dissing other Republican governors in distress. Excuse me, Democratic governors in distress. This is a problem that they caused because they will not enforce the border. By the way, we're up to now 7,000 a day at the border. Your ideas of squelching and tamping down since Title 42 evaporated, well, they're boomeranging now that the fall is here.
Well, you know what? Maybe the fact that they met with the chief of staff can actually get stuff done. So maybe
disrespectful.
It is a sign of
yeah,
disrespect.
but maybe they'll get some stuff done.
What
anyway,
she wants, by the way, Steve,
I know.
she and the mayor, they want to give worker permits to all these people.
Can't do it.
You talk about the money spent, Brian, on trying to house and take care of all these people who've come illegally across our border, but this will put downward pressure on the poorest, the working class, right here in New York. This will put downward pressure on their wages. There's all these new workers, and they're going to be competing for those jobs.
But they can't do it because it'll be a magnet for another 100,000.
Right.
I come to the best city in the world, and I'll be able to work and get 3 meals a day, my laundry done, and a menu.
And
Are
that
you kidding?
I'm going to quibble with the best city in the world, but okay.
Yeah, me too.
One of the most famous.
It was great once. I'll just say that. Anyway, there's so much to talk about. That is why yesterday in the briefing of Karine Jean-Pierre, Peter Doocy asked her an important question on the minds of a lot of people, not only in Staten Island, but throughout the 5 boroughs. And here's Peter and the press secretary.
Eric Adams, the New York mayor, is saying about these migrants in New York City, any plan that does not include stopping the flow at the border is a failed plan. So why aren't you guys stopping the flow at the border?
We are stopping the flow at the border. If anything, what the president has been able to do on his own without the help of Republicans in Congress, something that he had to do on his own again because Republicans refuse to give the funding necessary to deal with a situation, a broken immigration system that has been broken for decades. What they choose to do is play politics.
Did she say we're stopping the flow at the border?
She's just flat out lying.
That's what she said, but she's absolutely right. They are stopping the flow at the border to hand them a map. Here's the United States. Welcome. to our land.
I told you
Show up in a nice place.
I told you
soon.
it's up to 7,000. It's getting just as bad as it was. The people are flooding in here.
7,000 what?
7,000 a day illegals are coming through the border. They had it down because you know why it was down? Because they were applying in the first country they went to, and we were providing, telling them how to use the app, and then flying them into these cities. So it wasn't down, just the border crossing was down, but now everything is up.
Yeah.
It's
intentional.
Self-inflicted.
It's crazy, just saying. All right, 7:17. Right now, Ashley joins us with some news about a Navy vet.
It was honestly very hard to watch, even his interview, because it was so painful looking. But we start your headlines with this. The retired Navy vet badly hurt in a mugging in his neighborhood in Philadelphia. He was walking his dog when this happened. He needed at least 100 stitches after that attack. And just a warning, the footage we're going to show you is graphic.
I did a year in a war zone in Iraq, did 2 years in Ukraine, and would not have expected this to happen in my very own neighborhood. There's a large party going on across the street that, in hindsight, I probably should have not walked near. And the next thing I remember, I'm in the emergency room.
The criminal behind the attack is still on the loose. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell freezes up for a second time while speaking to reporters. The 81-year-old pausing for 30 seconds before being escorted from the podium by his team. President Biden says he'll be in touch. Listen.
I just heard literally coming out, and Mitch is a friend, as you know, not a joke. We always, I know people don't believe that's the case, but we have disagreements politically, but he's a good friend, and so I'm going to try to get in touch with him later this afternoon.
McConnell's office says he felt momentarily lightheaded, and while he feels fine as a prudential measure, the leader will be consulting a physician prior to his next event. And on to the U.S. Open. Tennis stars Novak Djokovic and Coco Gauff breeze through second-round matchups in straight sets. Meanwhile, 22-seed Adrian Marinero, on that one, wows the New York crowd with a tweener. Watch. Meanwhile, a second player is backing Maria Sukharis' complaint. The event reeks of marijuana. And then Alexander Zverev telling the AP, quote, Court 17 definitely smells like Snoop Dogg's living room. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, welcome to New York.
I mean, but would they get contact
like
high? Coming into the building, by the way.
Oh, anytime you walk through here, it's bad. But would they get contact high from that?
Sure.
Would that affect them? Could they test positive?
It's secondhand smoke.
It's legal.
Liberals cared about secondhand smoke when it was nicotine.
Yeah,
now with
it's like,
marijuana,
oh, it's
they're all
fine.
down with it.
By the way, we're about to legalize internationally.
It's the worst idea. It's the worst.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. All right. Coming up, as if Americans already can't stand Bidenomics, now Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary says the worst is yet to come. Mr. Wonderful here to explain.
7:32 here in the East Coast. Back with the Fox Weather Alert. We are tracking Idalia as the powerful storm that hit Florida as a Cat 3 hurricane is now blamed for at least 2 deaths in the state of Florida and 1 in Georgia. Over 310,000 people are at this hour without power in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas.
And check this out, a brief tornado from Idalia flipping a car off the ground in South Carolina.
Yup. Meanwhile, before and after satellite images show the extent of the flooding in Florida, the overhead shot. I'd like to check in with senior meteorologist Janice Dean for the Fox Weather Forecast. Janice, are we out of the woods, out of the rain?
Almost. And 24 hours ago, we were talking about a Category 4 storm.
Yeah,
really incredible,
was.
right? And now we have a tropical storm still causing problems. And, of course, we talked about the power outages. So close to 300,000 people still without power. In some cases, it's going to take a matter of days to get out here across the Big Bend. So we had a landfall around this time yesterday. Was a Category 4, made landfall across the Big Bend as a Category 3, now moving up towards the coast of North Carolina. And we still have the potential for some storm surge as well as heavy rain. Certainly gusty winds, not a good beach day out here across the Carolinas, but over the next couple of hours moving into the Atlantic. I think one of the benefiting factors of the storm was how fast it was moving, right? It hardly lingered at all, and it's quickly out of here 24 hours later. But we still have the potential for some heavy rain along the Outer Banks and coastal North Carolina. Here is the track of Idalia as we go through the next couple of days. So 60-mile-per-hour sustained winds, goes out, the remnants near Bermuda, and then, you know, kind of lingers, but for the most part, it is out to sea. Quick look at your forecast today as we go into the long Labor Day weekend. Not too bad watching that tropical storm move offshore. We could see some showers and thunderstorms for Florida, so flash flooding is a concern, as well as the southwest and the northwest. Otherwise, pretty quiet, and I don't think we're going to see any tropical activity this weekend, which is great news. All right, Rachel, Steve, Brian, over to you.
All right.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
All right. Meanwhile, the city of Denver is set to pay $4.7 million, almost $5 million, to protesters after a class action lawsuit accused Denver of targeting them for violating the curfew during the 2020 George Floyd riots.
This latest suit brings the total payments to over $20 million.
But where is the money for businesses damaged during the riots? Soul Street Shoes was damaged multiple times in 2020 and lost $170,000 in goods. Have we thought about that? Its owner, Zach Monks, joins us now. Zach, you outraged by this?
You know, I'm frustrated with the city for sure for the lack of support that they've shown all the businesses downtown.
What's the effect been on yours?
You know, it's been devastating. You know, it'll probably take us anywhere from 5 to 10 years to recover from what happened.
Right, and you lost $170,000. You know, you'd be getting money if you would have been protesting, but you didn't. Instead, you were just trying to run your business. You've received no money, you know, ultimately from the city. We know that that is frustrating. How many of the people, Zach, who destroyed your business and other businesses, how many of those people have been held accountable?
None that I'm aware of. You know, we provided the city with the information that we had, the videos and everything that was posted even to social media, but as far as I know, they never, you know, found any of them.
Did they really try to find them?
I don't think so, but I don't know that to be certain, but I don't think so.
You know, I'm just so curious, Zach, because, you know, Denver's obviously a pretty progressive city, and I'm sure you have other small business owners and citizens that you know that are as frustrated as you. What are cities like this going to do about changing leadership? Do you see people galvanizing, organizing to go, we're not going to take this anymore?
Yeah, you know, I hope that that'll be the case in the future. You know, the area that we're at right now, to be honest, is probably about 75 to 80%, you know, not occupied. The biggest thing the city can do for us is just make it a viable place to do business going forward. You know, the money, you know, from the loss, it's almost too late to replace that. Those businesses are already gone. We just need a viable place to do business going forward.
What do you mean by viable? What do you want them to do?
Make it a safe and, you know, clean environment, you know, where, you know, people are willing to come down and, you know, experience what we have to offer downtown. We have a great, you know, infrastructure in place, but right now it's just people don't feel safe. They don't think it's clean. There's a lot of drug use. There could be a lot of improvements done.
It was thriving a short time ago.
And it's hard when you have competition from online and you have these conditions for people when they go to the store. Zach, thanks for joining us this morning. We hope things get better in Denver.
Thank you.
You got it. Coming up, these 5 battleground states were crucial to President Biden's 2020 victory, but are they in jeopardy heading into 2024? Well, we're going to ask a panel of swing state voters next. A Georgia voter and the owner of Black Market Barbecue Food Trailer, Jorge Rivas, an Arizona voter and Tucson business owner, and Esther Parsons, a Pennsylvania voter and a trucker. Why don't we start with you? Welcome to all of you. I'm going to start with you, John. How are things looking in Georgia? I mean, I'm sure you're on the ground. You're meeting lots of people through your small business. Does it look good for Biden in Georgia?
You know, I certainly hope not. It's always hard to say with any kind of certainty whether one way or the other, because I usually don't bring up any kind of political, you know, discussions when I'm at my food trailer. It's just all about the barbecue and making sure everybody has good food and has a good time. But I tell you what, the feeling that I get amongst my group of peers a lot of my people that I work with, is that we're really pulling for Biden to lose. And it's a lot of different reasons why. There's a lot of
What's the
like
top reason?
Corrupt.
What's your top reason why you think he should lose?
He has ruined the economy. I mean, inflation's out of control. We're no longer energy independent. We're paying so much more for everything just for being alive. Yeah, it's stifling business growth. It's keeping money out of families' pockets. And it's really affecting the quality of life for regular Americans.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm going to go to you, Jorge, because you're also a small business owner, just like John. We had Kevin O'Leary on earlier in the show from Shark Tank. He says this economy is crushing small business owners more than anything else.
That is correct. It's very difficult to run a business nowadays. I just got a call from one of my suppliers, and she said that in the next couple of weeks, the price of meat, the price of eggs and some other items are going to keep going up. And my price is already almost, I consider them high already. So I cannot increase them anymore because otherwise they are not going to come to our restaurant because, everything is getting so expensive. So it is a difficult situation for business at this moment.
Jorge, you're in Arizona. I know the economy is a top issue and it certainly affects you as a small business owner. But how big is the border situation for Arizona voters right now?
Well, it's only difficult. You hear a lot of it because simply of the reason that the government right now is not doing their job. They are not enforcing the law that should be enforced. And if only they will do that, then the border will be fine. But apparently we have a very incompetent government official that they don't do the job. They shouldn't get paid if they're not doing the job. So to me, it's simple to fix as long as you do your job, but they're not doing that.
Really fast, you think Biden's going to win Arizona again?
I hope not. I don't think he is. I mean, I'm at restaurants, I get people all the time, and we talk about politics all the time because they know that, Assamese, they can say whatever they want without being afraid of a retaliation. Yeah. And people say, that they are not only they don't like Trump, he's incapable. He doesn't have the mental, physical capacity to run this country. Yeah. We want a leader that is strong. We want Donald Trump back, or someone that will do a real good job. But apparently, at this moment, as we've been seeing for all those 2 years, Biden he should be in a playing golf or playing cards, but not running the United States of America.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's coordinated enough to play golf at this stage, but it's a great recommendation. Esther, I'm going to go to you. You're in Pennsylvania. You are a single mom. You work for UPS, so you're a truck driver as well. What's the top concern that you have?
My concern is keeping America intact and building on American-made products, because American-made products feed our economy. They feed Americans, and they are usually labor-friendly.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to see more initiatives in American jobs and keeping the American-made product going and building on that.
Do you think that, really fast, I only have a couple seconds here, do you think Joe Biden's doing that, and do you think he'll win the state of Pennsylvania?
He's done it to some degree. I don't think he's going to win the state of Pennsylvania this time. There's too many disgruntled voters.
I wish I had more time with you three voters. I'm actually going to recommend we bring you guys back on the weekend to talk about it, because you guys had some really interesting thoughts on things that the candidates aren't talking about that really matter to you. I know, John, you talked about digital currency, and Jorge, you're very concerned about election integrity. And so anyway, you guys are an interesting panel. I hope we have you back. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You got it. Coming up, Buster Murdoch breaks his silence on his convicted killer father, calling him a psychopath, but says he's innocent of murder. That exclusive sit-down with Fox still ahead. Plus, a former immigration judge claims the DHS is deliberately not reporting how many migrants are being released into the country. That judge will explain next.
Well, there is more fallout on this Thursday morning over Joe Biden's border policies. A former immigration judge says the Department of Homeland Security is deliberately not reporting the number of migrants released in the United States every month after being issued a notice to appear ticket for later immigration hearings. He said the data should be public available, like how the CBP reports encounters at our southern borders. That judge, Andrew Arthur, joins us right now live from Charlotte. Good morning to you, Judge.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, a real pleasure. So why aren't they putting the numbers out there? What are they hiding?
So there are about 317,000 people who have come through the ports of entry. They've received notices to appear. They've been put into removal proceedings. We don't know what happened to them. That's the population of Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, or St. Louis. They don't want us to know what happened to them, what they did, and they don't want us to know that they released them.
I think the reason they don't want the number out there is because it's just so jaw-dropping. The numbers are so big. Judge, can you explain to me what Joe Biden and his administration are trying to do by essentially letting anybody who comes to our southern border come on in?
They're just encouraging more people to enter the United States illegally. In fact, that's what a federal judge in Florida found back in March. They're not coming. Geopolitical factors play a role, but the reason that so many people, 5 million plus people, are coming right now is because they know that there's a high likelihood they're going to be released in the United States and be here forever.
Sure, and we've been hearing these stories about how migrants are being given a court date for like 10 years from now, which means they're just free to roam the country and do whatever until that, and hard telling whether or not they're going to show up or not. The administration says one of the problems is they need more immigration judges. You were an immigration judge for a long time. How hard is it to get more? And explain what you guys do.
So I heard about 15,000 cases during the 8 years that I sat on the bench, and many of those are border cases, and most of my term was under the Obama administration, because President Obama actually detained border migrants. Yeah. So, we hear the cases, we adjudicate asylum claims, we decide bond, things like that. Everything that a judge in a criminal court would do, we do. Only the issue isn't whether you go to jail, it's whether you get into the United States.
Exactly. Right now, it looks like everybody can get in. And there was a story that made headlines over the last couple of days, and I'm sure you saw it. Apparently, the FBI is right now trying to track down migrants who got into the United States via the help of a smuggler with ties to ISIS. And the White House is going, hey, look, this is a success. We eventually found the guy. But aren't we supposed to stop the bad guys, Judge, at the southern border before they get in?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of my earlier jobs, I advised then Attorney General Janet Reno on terrorist aliens. Every time a foreign national from a terrorist country was apprehended, I knew, and generally the Attorney General and the Commissioner of the INS knew. Apparently these days, the decision to release aliens from countries where there is terrorist activities is made by Border Patrol agents at the line. Right. They don't have the time and they don't have the ability to vet those migrants. They should be detained, and there should be a full vetting before they're released. But Steve, here's the really impressive thing. If you go to the CBP website, they'll tell you that only 0.009% of all the migrants they apprehend are on the terrorist watch list.
Yeah, right.
That's just incredible. If you told me when I got on a plane that there was only a 0.009% chance it would crash, I wouldn't get on the plane.
Great point. Judge, thank you very much for shedding your expertise and your service to America.